West Ham 0, Brentford 1. We had a little bit more optimism going into this game from our preview show, but this is going to be a little bit of a dissect of what went wrong. It was really stale, really flat. A couple of moments to be, optimistic by if I was picking at straws, but yeah, by and large, it was a pretty poor performance. So we're going to review it in our review show. So if you enjoy it, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content, and yeah, Sloth, what did you make of the game overall before we get into the breakdown of things?
I
Because
think
it just seemed flat.
I think the first 45 minutes was near enough a complete write-off. Yeah, I think we looked awful, and I don't think that's an exaggeration either. We just were lethargic, and there was no energy or intensity to how we were playing. And I know I've seen a bit of criticism for the lineup and the fact that we went four at the back when the five at the back has been working. But I can kind of understand why. I think Potter at home I think there would have been a bit of criticism either way. If he'd not set up with a four at the back, people would have criticised it for maybe being a bit too defensive. But the worrying thing is that even though he went with a more attacking setup, we just offered next to nothing for 45 minutes as well. I mean, maybe a couple of moves, there was no energy, and it was really night and day between us and Brentford. They looked far better, more energetic, skillful, and I think attack-minded side. They had a very clear plan of how they were going to play against us that had been worked on for weeks, and I think we just our players look like they want to put their feet up, but the majority anyway. I think the majority of them look like they just want to put their feet up and have a couple of weeks off. And yeah, I thought we were really poor.
Well, that's what was frustrating, wasn't it? I mean, as you said, we went to a back four. Let's take a look at the lineups because, yeah, I was surprised that we went to a back four. I think Graham Potter wants to experiment with the players he's got available. Obviously, the first time we saw Bowen, Kudus, Paqueta in that front four under Graham Potter, and yeah, I feel like he was just trying to make something a little bit different of what we've currently got. Obviously, Todibo was on the bench; he didn't feature, so I think he wanted to go with that back four and give Mavropanos another chance in that back line. Obviously, Alvarez and Souček was the double pivot. He obviously started Soler as well. So it was quite an attacking lineup in that sense. And obviously, Brentford, as we mentioned, they've been playing more of a traditional back four in the last few games under Thomas Frank. So maybe Graham Potter saw it as an opportunity to match them stylistically and see what we can do with the quality of our players. But as you say, in that first half, it was terrible. But by and large, when we look at the stats, there wasn't an awful lot from West Ham. We had a lot of the ball, especially in the second half, 58% possession overall to Brentford's 42. But you can see their expected goals. Brentford's was twice as high as ours. The shots were pretty much similar. They had a couple more on target, one more big chance than us. But you can see that we made almost 200 more passes than them, dominated corners. So when you look at it on paper, it looks like a frustrating game. And if you watch the game, it was a frustrating game. And you can see here from the momentum, by and large, the first half was West Ham just playing way too passive, way too slow. Brentford, much more energetic, as you said, Sloth. And, the second half, we did change things. We obviously made 3 subs at half time, and that did change the pattern of the game. But Brentford, by and large, were quite comfortable for the second half. But let's take a look at the first half because, yeah, I think we expected more. I thought we would, given the break that we've had, 2 weeks to reset and go into this full of energy, on the front foot against a Brentford team that have been very good at home, but haven't been the best away so far this season, and really putting them under some pressure. But it was just, let's take a look at the first goal, Sloth, because it happened quite early on. Again, it seems to be a recurring theme for West Ham this season. And it all came from our corner. We didn't reset from the corner. And it was almost like elements of Lopetegui ball was back into what we were doing in the opening minutes, because as soon as the ball comes here, Mavropanos goes out to press to try and win it. Fine, doesn't. This is now a trigger for everyone to reset and get back into our shape, and as quick as possible, because Brentford are fantastic on the break and they caught us out numerous times yesterday. We don't do that. Carlos Soler is the first one to go and try and press in when we're not ready for it. I mean, you can see there, look, Kilman and Mavropanos, they're already on their way back. But you can see Souček, he's already drawn towards going in and pressing. So already Brentford are always going to have a man advantage in this situation because of how disjointed this press is. And I get it, we're trying to be aggressive in the opening few minutes, but look at Mavropanos. He's not even looking at the ball here. He's ready to go back and reset. Souček's been caught out. And then Alvarez, again, like his trigger, his mindset is to go in. So that's exactly what he does in this situation when the ball gets played in to Damsgaard, I believe it is. It's just a simple one pass. Like Vissa literally just makes the move off of Souček here. It's one pass in. A few players are jogging back. A few players are trying to press. It's just extremely uncoordinated. And then Brentford have the quality to cause us problems. Obviously, Vissa plays a nice through ball over the top. And you can see there the back line, like Emerson, Wan-Bissaka, Kilman, Mavropanos. It's not reset because of the corner. Players are in different positions. But there's still a moment or two after this to prevent this goal from happening. But it doesn't happen. The first mistake, I've said it this season, and I'm saying it again. Emerson's made way too many mistakes for me defensively. He just bottles this challenge. Like if you watch this video back, he's favourite to get to this ball in front of Mbeumo. But Mbeumo wants it more. He's stronger. He's more brave. And then that allows Schade to run through on goal. His initial shot is saved. A very good save from Areola. Again, the second effort, somehow we managed to keep it out. But then Schade's the first one to react after that. You can see Kilman and Schade, they're in kind of the same position once this sequence has ended. But Schade's just sharper to the situation. Again, Areola, very unlucky, almost made a fantastic save, but the ball did go over the line and we find ourselves 1-0 down within 4 minutes. And, that kind of set the tone for the rest of the 90 minutes, Slough. But again, like patterns and sequences of mistakes there that could have been avoided if we just reset. We get back into our shape, we reset, we make it difficult for Brentford. But do you feel like because we were caught up in the opening few minutes trying to be energetic, we had the corner, we were trying to be on the front foot, that in the end we caught ourselves out by trying to be too aggressive in that situation?
I think that's part of it. I think, I'm highlighted in the preview that Damsgaard for me is one of their very best players. I think he's been fantastic this season. But their key threat for me is pace. And it's not just the fact that they're quick on the counter. It's the fact that they are willing to run and create that space. And you saw it particularly with Schade. He's someone that I think a lot of sort of football fans who don't watch him maybe see that he can be frustrating at times, but he will always give you that outlet. He will always give you a willing runner, and he will also work hard defensively. And I think when you see how we played, particularly with massive pacey centre back, in the form of Mavropanos, I just thought he was useless in that entirety of the goal. And you cannot be that big and that quick and offer nothing in you mentioned it sort of felt like a hangover from Lopetegui. It's, for me, it's exactly that, where the Mavropanos going out to press him. You're the centre back. What are you doing? Like if he was playing right back like he had for Stuttgart multiple times, then you kind of go, yeah, that's fair enough. But what are you doing going out and pressing someone as a centre back from a corner? You should just get back. It's not your job to be doing that. If it's kind of something that I don't know where this is coming from. I think it must be something that Lopetegui was trying to coach into the squad, because it was so clear in that first half. They must have received a proper rollicking. And, we know there were multiple substitutions, but just bringing it back to the goal, I think the half-hearted nature of the defending, whether it was from Kilman, whether it was from Mavropanos in that pressing, and then he's kind of flat-footed getting back as well. Emerson's woeful attempt to challenge, or even Aaron Wan-Bissaka, he kind of did that thing that we criticise him in poor games, where he tries to look busy. he tries to sort of look like he's covering ground, but he's not really picking anyone up. And I don't know. I just thought it was a real shambles. But I was kind of trying to be positive and thinking, okay, it's early doors.
Yeah.
We can bounce back from this. You know, people bounce back, as Alan Partridge says. But I could see the writing on the wall that Brentford were just going to really look to soak up the pressure and utilise those outlets, because I think Mbeumo gets... Well, I'm criticising Emerson, but Mbeumo deserves a lot of credit for his work there, and
He was fantastic, yeah.
Pressuring Emerson into not challenging.
He just wanted it more than him. That was a simple... I think for me, there's just too many individual mistakes there. I believe we're trying to be aggressive. Obviously, the message from Graham Potter would have been, we're at home, we've had 2 weeks break, we're playing a Brentford team that haven't been great away. Let's put them under some pressure. You're thinking, great, we've got an early corner, let's do that. But as you say, you have to realise as an individual on that pitch when to go and press or when to drop off. And we saw in that clip, there's 3 players jogging back, but then there's 3 players trying to press by themselves. And that for me is individual mistakes. And then you talk about the defending of the goal. Again, Areola was unfortunate with how things... I thought he did very well in that situation, but yeah, Brentford were just sharper to it. Brentford were just sharper to it. And it was, we found ourselves 1-0 down, and again, a mountain to climb in a difficult game. So Brentford were never going to make it easy, whether it was 0-0, whether they were losing, and definitely not when they were winning, especially a team like Brentford. When they go a goal up, it's incredibly difficult to break them down, as we saw in the second half, and we'll touch on that a little bit. But I just think we just didn't want it as much as Brentford in that first half. And, another one of their chances kind of epitomizes that. In the 20th minute here, we've got loads of players around Visser here. Like, there probably was about 4 or 5 seconds of Visser just holding onto the ball here, us making half-hearted challenges, trying to get the ball off of him. We don't do it. As you can see here, still got hold of the ball. We still can't tackle him, not winning our individual battles in the middle of the pitch. Again, Damsgaard somehow winning this off Alvarez. Alvarez not winning his battle here, has to win this ball, has to be stronger, has to be better, isn't. And then, it breaks for Visser, who plays it into, I believe that was Nordgaard, who plays a lovely pass through to Mbeumo. And we spoke about the dangers of someone like Mbeumo in that channel of space. Emerson just was not on it at all in that first 45 minutes from a defensive perspective. He was finding it very, very difficult against one of the best wingers in the league. Let's make no mistake of that. He's a fantastic player, but it was just way too easy. And the midfield in this sequence here got beat way, way too easily for even the ball to get into this situation. And again, Areola makes a really, really good save in this situation to prevent it from being 2-0. But that whole sequence for me just epitomized that first half of football for West Ham, because we were second to every challenge, we were less energetic, we weren't winning our duels, and Brentford were showing a lot more quality in possession as well as out of possession. But did that kind of sum up a lot of the first half for you as well, sort of just not being good enough when we had the ball, but out of possession, just all over the place, really?
Pretty much. I think I can totally understand why Potter has set up like this. Like I mentioned, it's an attempt to be positive at home against Brentford, and I don't think that we can, we can hold our hands up and say he got it wrong because we lost. But I think you would have been frustrated if we'd gone into this with a back 5 and lost. I think people would have been a lot louder in terms of their criticism for him. But it's the lack of intensity that is really frustrating. And, I cannot believe that we looked at we had the whole of January to try and address some issues. And, we saw across the start of the season, Mavropanos has been really, really poor all season. So we didn't sign a centre-back. You can see that there are players out of form in the attack who aren't pulling their weight and working hard. So we signed a striker, which is a start because, we only had one fit striker really. And that's good. But we knew Somerville had an injury on that left-hand side, and we've not addressed it. I think Emerson was playing like he was expecting to be left wing yesterday. He didn't really have a defensive mindset yesterday, and that has been the case for a large part of the season as well. It's quite concerning. But again, I think when you look at how little intensity and energy we were showing yesterday, I don't think that doesn't come from Potter. You know, he made a number of changes at half time that clearly affected the game and affected how we were performing. But the players on the pitch really need to hold themselves accountable. And as much as I like Carlos Soler and the figure that he is, you know, he was anonymous yesterday. Kudus, I don't know how he's got the rating that he has there. He was. This is a very clear case of a player who has a lot of ability and is, you know, he's very clearly incredibly strong on the ball, carries it really well, but his end product is atrocious, and his decision making this season is atrocious. You know, not in general, but this season in particular is really, really poor. Mm-hmm. And you cannot afford to carry players who are doing that. You know, it's contrast this to last season. You know, we would never have dreamed of saying that we were carrying Kudus, and I think when you look at the difference between him and Bowen, you know, Bowen was offering an outlook, really like working hard, particularly in that second half, but the attack was half-hearted for so much of that first half.
Yeah. I mean, one of the players you spoke about there, Carlos Soler, obviously he was involved in what could have been a good moment for us that actually turned into a Brentford chance. So, yeah, this was Thomas Souček just clearing it upfield. And I think we saw Matoma do something similar against Chelsea the other day with an incredible first touch. Soler was pretty similar. It was a really, really nice touch from this position to take it round Lewis Potter. And you're just thinking, just drive into this space. You know, it's 2v2 at the back. You've got Kudus coming up with you. Just keep driving forwards. But we've said it before, Soler he's a neat and tidy player who will look to come inside. He'll look to link play where possible, but by and large, quite ineffective, but will pop up with a moment or two. But it's these situations here where you're just asking for someone to drive forwards with the ball. But his first instinct is to cut inside. And he tries to cut back. It's not a foul. He tries to roll around getting a foul. The reaction's really poor. And then all of a sudden, Brentford find themselves in this situation with one pass because, again, we were just so unorganised in that first half. And it's one pass through from Damsgaard. Again, a really nice pass through. Mavropanos misses the interception, and then Kilman's trying to cover, and Schade hits the post. And, you know, we go from a moment where we're in this situation, 28 minutes 33, to 15 seconds later, Brentford hitting the post. And that, again, epitomized the first half for me. Players were hiding. And Carlos Soler is one of those players in the last few games who I feel like has been hiding in matches. And, you know, when they get the ball, it's very comfortable in possession, very risk adverse, won't do too much wrong. But there's a lot more they can offer in that period. And that's why I'm probably less critical. And, I completely understand the criticism of Kudus recently because he hasn't been good. But it's maybe why I'm less critical of him than others, because I think he's someone that is at least trying to make something happen. It would be very easy for someone like Kudus to just, stand around, hide away from the ball. I don't think he was doing that personally yesterday. I actually thought he was trying quite hard, especially in the second half. There were a few moments when he was put on the left wing where he was really tracking back. He won a couple of duels where he tracked back and won the ball, and he was trying to drive West Ham forwards. Carlos Soler was not that player. And hasn't been that player for West Ham. So I think there's both sides to that.
I think second half, like, this is one of the things I was going to say. Second half, we did look far better in attack, and I think Kudus in particular looked like he'd had a bit of a rollicking from Potter. Like he was working a lot harder. But the reason I'm using quite dramatic language like atrocious is because the comparison to last season is it's night and day. And I don't think that when you've seen a player who can perform like that and hit those standards and maintain them as well, he was consistent last season. I think that is such a worrying thing for any manager or coach, because then it's a question of what are we doing that is impacting his end product and decision making, but also, are we going to have to change it? You know, at the end of the day, things like him losing possession or decision making is costing you, then you have to be willing to, you know, change things up. And I do think that second half he was better, but there is a big risk, I think, with Kudus and Soler, that we have one side that isn't willing to do the work and isn't willing to offer the impact at both ends of the pitch. And, you know, second half, I think he did step up. But when you look at that first half performance, it's unacceptable for me. It's from both players as well. You know, Soler, I think at the moment, it's like people kind of got on this hype train. And, you know, I was really impressed with some of his performances. But we need to make sure that we look at the end of the season and think, is this going to be a deal worth making? Because, you know what, at the moment, he's not showing enough. And it needs to be a case of we start identifying players like Brentford are doing, where they are offering you work. They're offering you a pacey outlet, an ability that is beyond just every few games.
Yeah, and I mean, in that first half, just to cap it off, we were very fortunate to go in at 1-0. Obviously, the VAR decision as well. Brentford were fantastic in the first half. I thought they performed really, really well as a unit. Defensively, they were excellent, and going forwards, they had such quality on the ball. And yeah, as you said, you know, players like Damsgaard, players like Mbeumo, they will hurt you. But you know, again, it comes from West Ham's just inability to defend and making it so easy. And players like Mbeumo, they'll find these pockets of space, especially when a midfield pivot of Alvarez and Souček, it's very immobile. It's very easy to play between the lines of. And that's exactly what they do in this situation. Mbeumo finds a nice pocket of space, pivots, turns, and again, someone like Carlos Soler in this situation has actually gone into the number 10 position. Kudus is out on the left, and he just runs off of him so easily. It's the easiest pass in the world for Brentford to make because Soler hasn't tracked the run. Again, Souček not winning an individual battle. That it was the story of the midfield yesterday. They just, in that first half, they were not winning any challenge or anything that came their way. And it's just way too easy. It's just literally sidesteps past Souček, passes it in. And luckily, he was in an offside position before this happened. But again, Wan-Bissaka, we spoke about it. His arms are up in the air, flailing around here. He should be covering in that space. You know, Wissa's on his toes, making the run in behind. And, you know, you move it on here. Wan-Bissaka's standing still with pretty much sulking. And Brentford find themselves 2-0 up. But luckily, it was offside in the build-up. But that would have been a really, really poor goal to concede on the stroke of half-time as well. And that kind of just, again, it reiterates the purpose of there is so much work for Graham Potter to do at West Ham. And there's so many individuals that need to also take a lot of responsibility for what's happening on the pitch. As you say, Carlos Soler in that situation, really poor. You know, the midfield of Souček and Alvarez, way too easy to play through. Wan-Bissaka stationary. Like, there's so many individuals that have to take accountability as well. But I think Potter realised that, and you know, he went very aggressive with the changes that he made at halftime. You know, it's very rare you'd see a triple substitution at halftime. So that aspect I liked, and it almost instantly worked, didn't it, Slough? You know, you can see it here. You got Ward-Prowse now playing alongside Alvarez. Scholes came on for Emerson, and Evan Ferguson came up on top, and Carlos Soler came off, and we put Paqueta a little bit deeper instead of playing that kind of number 9, false 9 position. And yeah, look, 2 minutes into the second half, it almost made a kind of an instant impact. And Jared Bowen, I don't know how he kind of did this, but he kind of took it down on his chest. He made like 5 touches in the air, pivoted round, and you can see Evan Ferguson there. He's already on the move. He's already looking to make a difference, make a run in behind. And we spoke about that in the first half. So players just not willing to make a run in behind. I think Kudus is a victim of it. He could definitely do that more with the pace he has. Paqueta's not that type of player. He's ball to feet. And really, you've only got Jared Bowen that will make those runs because Carlos Soler wasn't doing it. So instantly, you've got someone running off of Jared Bowen and allowing Bowen to come in more central and not forced out on the touchline in a wide position where he's most effective. And again, he kind of juggles it, pivots round, plays a really nice pass through to Evan Ferguson, who, again, doesn't stand still. He follows the run. He makes the movement. He makes a nice touch down the line and does everything right. He cuts it back into an area for Kudus. Kudus does everything right to beat his man and get in ahead of him. But he just doesn't have the composure. And it goes back to what you said, Sloth. He has to do better in this situation, no matter how hard you're working, how much you're, in my instance, not hiding in a match. You have to score that, even if it's on your weaker foot. It should have been 1-1 in that situation. But there were positives to take from immediately from that second half switch.
Yeah, I completely agree. And for me, I think Scholes starts at left back. I think there's too much. He's offering too much at the moment, even if it's just from as a half-time substitution. It was a level above Emerson yesterday, and I think his delivery is improving, but it's also he offered an attacking threat yesterday, and I know he had a couple of shots that were close. He was very much finding
one of them nearly flew in, didn't it? I think it was cleared off the line. Yeah,
finding his range, but I think he really helped set the tone on that left-hand side and was challenging for everything, was chasing everything, and when he was on the ball, he was good in possession. I think that
I thought he was okay. I didn't think he was amazing.
I think it was refreshing in comparison to Emerson. I thought he had a good game, but maybe it's just
Mbemo was definitely less effective in the second half. I don't know whether that was down to how we were playing, or Scholes' performance. But yeah, I thought he did okay.
I think there's I think his delivery will improve when he has an outlet as well. I think that is going to be something that is really beneficial for both wing backs. Or either side, if we have Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Scholes with Ferguson up top, then it actually gives us someone to aim for, as opposed to Paqueta, who is solid in the air. It's definitely one of the most underrated parts of his game, but he's not looking to battle in the air and run onto a ball and nod it in. But I think Scholes was a positive yesterday. I definitely think James Ward-Prowse deserves a lot of credit for when he came on, but Ferguson for me was the game changer. I think it's quite easy to say why didn't he start, but he's building his fitness, so I'm not gonna criticize Potter for that. I think he's on the training pitch with him, and he will know how much he can last.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like you mentioned, he is running and running the channels, but also running into space and offering an option, and that is something that, as good as Paqueta can be in that false nine position, he just cannot do that. He doesn't have the pace to do it, and he doesn't have the attacking mindset to do it. He will find those runs, and that's what we need to start doing. We need to start, for me, dropping Paqueta a bit deeper.
Agreed.
Moving Kudus out onto that left side, and almost dropping Soler, unfortunately, unless he can play in the centre. But when you have someone who's willing to make those runs, like Ferguson, but can also whip it back in, I think it's such a huge game changer. And I think all the substitutions made such a positive impact.
Yeah, I think when you have someone like Evan Ferguson, who is more of a focal point than you say, even if Paqueta's play, I think Paqueta can do the physical aspect really well, but it's not his favourite part of the game. He'd much prefer being involved in the build-up, trying to make things happen. And in the second half, he was kind of given the license to do that because he dropped back in, and he was the one that was trying to make things happen. And again, that was kind of a frustration in the second half that we'll get onto shortly. But as you said, Evan Ferguson made a really positive impact, James Ward-Prowse as well. But yeah, just having Evan Ferguson there to occupy that space of the defenders, it just created that space for Bowen to drift in 5-10 yards in towards the center of the pitch. And in the first half, I thought he was way too wide, way too isolated, Jared Bowen. And because Paqueta was ball to feet, we didn't really have that focal point up top. But Evan Ferguson almost pinned those Brighton centre backs a little bit, 5-10 yards deeper to drop. Brentford, sorry, I keep doing it.
Brighton on the brain.
Yeah, it's because he played for Brighton. It's in my head. But yeah, he was really good. And 2 minutes in, almost got an assist, and yeah, Kudus should have scored. But there was also a shift in how we were building up, because I think in the first half, again, I don't think Souček was great yesterday at all. He's not someone that's going to be involved loads in the build up. So there's a dependency on Edson Alvarez to go and get the ball. And having James Ward-Prowse, it just allowed us a couple of options to try and play out. And it caused Brentford a few more options or difficult situations where we were trying to play out from. And you can see in this situation here, Ward-Prowse goes in to get the ball. Thomas Souček wouldn't have done this. He probably would have just pushed on. That's not any, I'm not throwing shade at Souček. That's just not the type of player he is. Ward-Prowse recognises that, plays a nice pass out to Mavropanos, and we've almost kind of drawn Brentford out a little bit of their shape. And then that allows someone like Paqueta to drop in these positions, because he was playing as the number 10, and he recognised the space between the lines. And then we make, we work it really, really well. The ball comes out to Kudus. As you mentioned, Scarles offered some more energy on that left-hand side and was a different option going forward to what Emerson was. And he creates the overlap, gets the ball, crosses it in. No one really in there. But Paqueta's shot gets deflected for a corner. But the main kind of importance of me putting that sequence in was just to show you the difference of approach with these substitutions that we made. And, it was a frustrating second half. We didn't create like loads and loads of chances. We had a lot of possession. Brentford were definitely less threatening. They had a couple of moments on the break, but I thought we handled it much better in the second half than we did the first half. But to be honest, I think Brentford were just happy to sit in their box and deal with any deliveries. I thought every single corner they dealt with fantastically. Any ball into the box, they were just, demanding the ball ahead of, whoever was in the box for West Ham. And I thought we got into some good situations. We just didn't have that final product. And I think there was an over dependence on someone like Lucas Paqueta to create an opportunity. And, you've got players like Bowen, Kudus, Ferguson. They're not necessarily creators in the same way someone like Lucas Paqueta is. So for me, there was just a little bit of an over dependence on Paqueta, and it became a little bit too easy for Brentford to defend. And, it would have taken something very special to break that defense down. But there were definitely positives to take from that second half.
I think one of the key issues that we have at the moment is, I've kind of spoken about it before, but if you are going to set up a midfield, you do not let them play through you. You just do not let that happen. If you're going to try and play a counter-attacking side, then whatever level you're playing at, if you have two centre midfielders or you have a defensive midfielder, you have to tell them they do not play through you. They have to go around you. That is like key coaching. And I think we have too many midfielders who aren't willing to get involved and do that, or they have been told to press. They've got that Lopetegui hangover, and I don't want to have too much of a dig at Lopetegui, but
the individuals have to take responsibility for that.
Exactly. And I think when you have players who will drift out wide and try and offer, maybe try and look to play a difficult pass instead of sitting a bit deeper, pick up the ball and retain possession, they'll try and do something instead of the easy option or retaining possession. They'll try and pick out that pass and risk giving possession away. Then the caveat to that is that they have to be willing to get stuck in and not let them play through you. And unfortunately, we just don't have that. We have, Souček sometimes does it, and Alvarez did it well last season, but hasn't done it this season. And I think when you are in a tough spot like we are, what you need to start saying is, right, we need to go back to the basics. They do not play through us. If they play through us in the middle of the park, it's going to be an extra day's training. If I see it more often than not, or if it looks too easy, it's an extra day's training. And I'm not telling like Graham Potter how to coach and manage, but what I'm saying is that there is a very clear issue with the middle of our park and our central midfield that they are not willing to get stuck in. And I think the longer that happens, the more goals we're going to concede, because
Yeah.
we have to be willing to get a bit, not nasty, but stuck in. And if that means we basically go in hard from the first minute and say, you're not going to play through us, then putting the emphasis on someone like Aaron Wan-Bissaka on that wide side means that you give them an alternative, and they're not going to want to play through Aaron Wan-Bissaka. So I just think we need to be a bit smarter about how we set up that midfield, because it's very clear that we have the outlets, and whether or not they're producing end product is kind of irrelevant when the patterns of play are not there for them to utilize.
I just think for me that the midfielders we have, as you say, they lack tenacity, they lack pace, they lack ball carrying, they lack physical duel winning. Like it's all of the things we've spoken about before, which is always going to leave us a little bit more exposed. And yeah, I think in the second half we did find it difficult to break through that Brentford midfield and defence, and they showed us how difficult it can be to break through the middle of a team when they're so compact and so defensively strong. But there was one moment of quality that we showed in that second half towards the end, where again Paqueta picking up the ball deep, and you can see here, it requires something very special to play through that defensive line of Brentford's, and Paqueta finds a really nice pass between the two midfielders. Again, we saw Mbeumo do it in the first half for Brentford's disallowed goal, and Bowen does it very similar position here, finds that space between the defenders and midfielders. And you can see here plays a very nice first time flick. I think him and Ferguson, that was another positive, their link up play, just getting bodies around someone like Ferguson is going to make things happen. And Ferguson himself, that touch there to open up his body and take it past the defender it's exceptional. It's a really, really good first touch. And, he creates that space and that shooting opportunity for himself. The shot itself is a little bit snatched, it's a little bit rushed, and it goes straight to the goalkeeper. But positive signs once again that we've got someone that can play in those tight spaces alongside someone like Bowen and Paqueta and make things happen. But, by and large, it was a frustrating performance. And the first half gave us way too much to do in the second half. We had a couple of moments to equalise or grab a goal back, but it just wasn't meant to be. I don't think we created enough. I think it was too safe, and I think we were over-dependent on someone like Lucas Paqueta to create something or, try and pick Brentford out. But, I mean, losing to Brentford, it does hurt. That one, we shouldn't be losing that game. As good as Brentford can be and have been this season, I don't think we should be losing that game. And we, to concede in the way we did after 3-4 minutes is still not good enough. And there's still a lot of work for this West Ham team and a lot of work for Graham Potter to do. But what are your final thoughts from it, Sloth? Any takeaways from the defeat against Brentford?
I think there's positives. I really find myself struggling to get past the negativity of the first half. I just think that it's an old cliche that West Ham fans will put up with a lot, but they won't put up with you not trying and working hard. And I think that is one of the biggest frustrations for me from this season. And look, I'm not going to bang on about the January window. I promise I'll try not to for the remainder of the season. But I think that when you break down just how much we lack pace and how much we lack people who are willing to stand up and grab a game by the scruff of the neck. I think, Kudus did it last season and he's clearly trying, but he's just not producing. Bowen is the player we know we can rely on for that in many, many games. And I think apart from that, that's when you start to sort of question things. Paqueta can do it. But again, it's the consistency. And I think when you then start to look at the wider issues, they all kind of complement each other and cause a bigger issue. There's a lot from that second half that I think we can take forward, and hopefully Evan Ferguson is going to be a game changer for us, literally. But I worry that when I look at particularly the first half performance, I'm not sure if I think that Evan Ferguson changes how poor we were there, because it wasn't like we were creating and looking lively. It was so lax, and there was so little energy or attempt to try and create space and cause problems for Brentford, that I think that really needs to be first, order on Monday morning, set everyone down, watch that first half back and go, this is not good enough, particularly at home. And I think you have to really doff your cap to Brentford and say, we've been very negative about West Ham in this video, but I think Brentford deserve, as you mentioned, a lot of credit for how well they performed and the attitude that they showed in terms of being able to sit back and soak up the pressure we showed in the second half and choose their moments to counter and attack and utilize the pace they have. That's the sort of football that I think Moyes did really well. Yeah. And it was something that, I've said many times, I don't think he was backed to achieve or maximize, but it's a case now that we need to figure out a way to perform, make it to the summer, and almost start from ground zero, because it's that first half, if we see more performances like that before the end of the season, I think we're going to be in a bad place.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below on the 1-0 defeat to Brentford. Joking, Brentford. Really, really difficult defeat. I mean, we're still 10 points above the drop, so we should be okay in terms of Premier League survival, should be. But yeah, as you said, still a lot of work and things to do in this next few month period for Graham Potter and the team. But yeah, let us know your thoughts on the game down below in the comments. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel as well. And Sloth, until the next one.
Come on, you irons.